and good afternoon, beautiful people. I see the chat is hopping already. All of the Sally come latelys from yesterday are early today, earlier than me even, which is just fantastic news. And of course, our ever-present Mama Flossie is in the house. So hello to Gaz and to Chris and to Flossie and to everybody else that is hanging around the chat this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining me. Bear with me while I get my shizzazz together, because as per usual lads, I am not in fact organised. I know that's going to absolutely astound you, but there we are. So, first of all, second shout out of the day, also to Mama Flossie, because Mama Flossie brought this up at the end of our stream yesterday. I didn't really know anything about it, and to be honest, there isn't much about it anywhere. I was looking on X, I was looking on all the social medias. There doesn't seem to be much talking about this, considering how much we speak about referees, the problems with referees, the bad refereeing in the country, etc, etc, etc. The constant talk about VAR. I think at this point we talk about VAR more than we talk about the actual football on the pitch. So we do an awful lot of talking about these guys, not just on this channel, but across YouTube and kind of wider social media. But now that there's some actual news about it, nobody seems to be talking about it, which I do find really, really odd. Really, really odd. But our super sleuth, Mama Flossie, was on the ball yesterday, and she said right at the end of the show that there's some big meeting that the guy in charge of the referees in Europe, he is calling for a meeting with the head of the Premier League referees. So I thought, right, nobody else is talking about it. There's not much gossip. Now, to be fair, it's because it coincides with the World Cup squad being announced, which is potentially done on purpose. They wanted to be overshadowed. They've thrown it out there, and then they're hoping the other news is going to take over. I do see huge in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But based on Flossie's super sleuth information, I decided to go and have a little dig. So this is what I have found, and it is accurate as of the 20th of March, yesterday. So 12:05 p.m, so around this time exactly yesterday, this news came out, and I am reading it from Inside World Football, so I can put a link in the description if you guys like, so you will be able to have a look at it yourselves, which would be, look at me, wait till you see me trying to use the tech while I am live at the same time. I mean, honestly, so article on referee meeting. I was going to say referee summoning, but that makes it sound like a really cult type of thing to do. Like the meeting of the coven is taking place. So you should now be able to see, don't leave, but you should now be able to see the link for that information in the chat. So you guys after the show will be able to go and give it a read yourself, in case you feel like I might have left anything out, because let's face it, I speak fast. Some of the words might get lost. Marv is in the house with his champers. Marv, it's early in the day for champers, although, is it even earlier where you are? You're earlier than us, aren't you? Yeah. Jesus. Marv is on the champers early today, lads. He's had a rough old week there. But let me read this to you. So again, this was 12:05 yesterday. UEFA calls in Big 5 league referee chiefs for VAR review. So not only are they calling in the head of the PGMOL for the Premier League, he's calling in all of the big guns. And you know what it is? It feels very much like being called to the principal's office. You have been naughty. You are not doing your job properly. Therefore, into the principal's office with you. That's the vibe I'm getting from this, which actually makes me feel highly amused about the whole thing. Obviously, it's all very serious, but it is also a little bit funny. Because, you know, little amuses the innocent, and of course I am most innocent. Also, guys, do you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to tell you to please hit the like button. So please hit that like button. Marv, it's 8 a.m. and it's Friday. It's never too early for champers. Love it. So, as of now, European football is heading for a VAR video assistant referee reset. But will it be for less or more? Less VAR or more VAR? That's the poll I should have put in the chat, although it might have been 100% to 1. That doesn't add up to 100. 100% to none, lads. I can count, I promise. UEFA has summoned referee chiefs from the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, the Bundesliga and Ligue 1 for a summer summit to address the growing concerns over how VAR is being applied across the game and the consistency of the platform from league to league. No, Flossie, I know there's no poll. That's what I'm saying. I should have set one up for that, but it probably would have been 100% to 1. I didn't do a poll today. I didn't. Because, to be fair, every time I do them, I forget to end the bloody things. I read them, I put them up, and then I read them kind of about 10 minutes into the show, and then after that, I just forget they exist. Honestly, a teaspoon would have a better memory than me. But it goes on to say, UEFA head of refereeing Roberto Rossetti will lead the meetings. He has previously warned that football risks drifting into a world of microscopic VAR interventions. We have drifted, Roberto. We have drifted. In the Premier League, we've already got this microscopic VAR interventions thing going on. So, well spotted, Mr. Rossetti. And I appreciate his concern because I share them. Chris, the poll should be if champers at 8 a.m. is acceptable or not. That one also might be 100%. Sachin is in the house and is saying it being VAR, was meant for clear and obvious errors, but now they are plucking out every individual detail to change results. Who did not see this coming? Apparently none of the referees saw it coming, which appears to be the problem in this scenario. We all saw it. They, however, did not. But Roberto is on the case. So, he said the football world risks drifting into a world of microscopic VAR interventions, a version where every touch, deflection and subjective call is dissected frame by frame. I feel like Roberto has been watching the Premier League. I mean, I can't promise, but I'm getting the impression based on these comments, he has been watching the Premier League. But he continues, I believe that we forgot the reason why VAR was introduced, Rossetti said. In objective decisions, it is fantastic. For interpretations, subjective evaluation, it's more difficult. That's why we started to speak about clear and obvious mistakes. Clear evidence. The principal guiding light was clear and obvious and is meant to be VAR's guardrail. Instead, its application now varies wildly. That it does. The Premier League, and this shocked me, people, so prepare yourselves, grab yourselves a seat, sit down, you might need somebody to hold your hand, okay, because this actually astounded me. The Premier League, statistically, has the least interventions at 0.275 reviews per game. It remains a minefield of weekly controversy. Elsewhere in Europe, intervention rates climb, with 0.38 in La Liga. In the Bundesliga, it's 0.44, and in Serie A, it's 0.47. In Ligue 1, it's 0.45. So in Serie A, 0.47, they are reviewing half of the decisions that happen in the match. That is absolutely incredible, okay? As forensic VAR becomes prevalent, the more it risks stripping away the instinctive human elements, the human elephants, good stuff, the human elements that define the sport. A toe, shoulder, wrist, offside by millimetres. A handball judged by slow motion replay, while technically correct decisions do not reflect the spirit of the game. UEFA's aim is to realign interpretation and create one technical language, particularly around subjective laws like handball. The summer's meeting may standardise the process. Whether it answers that deeper question is another matter entirely. What struck me, obviously the meeting is very important. Clearly, Roberto Rossetti here is very much aligned with the fans and how we're feeling. But what actually genuinely shook me, I was shook, is the fact that the Premier League has the least interventions and we hate it. We think it's way too much. Imagine what it's like to watch matches in the Bundesliga and Serie A and Ligue 1. They don't seem to be as annoyed about it though. Is it because while they have more checks, they're faster so it's less annoying? I don't know. But Roberto is having none of it. Not only have they all been called to the principal's office, but they've been called in the summertime to the principal's office. They're in real trouble. They're going to be scrubbing graffiti off desks, Promise you, 100%. They are in trouble. But would you have guessed it? We had the least, in the top 5 leagues, we have the least interventions. I find that genuinely incredible. I can't wrap my head around the fact that that is true. However, I can't believe that Roberto would lie to us after all we've been through together. Marv would like to know who is the human elephant. I don't really know. Maybe they're going to decide that also at the summit. Maybe in the summer party, after they've scrubbed the graffiti off the desks, once they've talked about how not to be terrible at VAR, they're also going to discuss who is the human elephant and what does he mean to football. Lads, maybe I have had champers. Maybe it's time to stop the pretense. I have in fact had some champers this morning. I have not. But it sounds like I might have. But what do you reckon to all of that? Because obviously we spend a lot of time speaking about VAR, referees, decisions, should they intervene, is it clear and obvious? Like they were talking about toes offside there. Do you know what I mean? I suppose for me, I actually find it a little bit reassuring that Roberto, who's the guy in charge, actually sees what we're seeing, that he has the same problems that we have, that he dislikes it as much as we dislike it. I actually find that quite reassuring because I feel like, that's what we want, is somebody at the top who is seeing the same things we're seeing. And it feels like he does, and he not only sees it, but he's going to try and do something about it. That feels like it can only be a good thing. Surely that can only be a good thing. Do you think it'll make any difference? Do you think Roberto Rossetti sounds like a man who is going to put them all back in order? I think he might be, he's called them in the summer. He's called them in outside of term time. They're in trouble, lads. Kai from behind the dugouts is in the chat. Welcome to lovely Kai. He might welcome this because his team might have had a few fewer red cards if VAR wasn't intervening in all these things. So actually, I'd say Kai's going to be delighted about this news. But the reason I find the timing of it very, very interesting, because obviously people have been talking about VAR for years. We've been shouting from the rafters for years. It's hardly the first season where everybody's been a little bit like, oh my God, VAR. Do you know, this has been going on for quite some time. But now all of a sudden they would like to do something about it. And I ask myself, why? Why do they want to do something about it now? And obviously, the elephant in the room, the elephant on the football pitch, the human elephant is the World Cup. See guys, how I seamlessly tied all of that together? Just such a pro, I can't speak my first language. Gaz is saying, human elephant, respect the ball. What is going on in football these days? We don't know, but Mr. Rossetti is going to get to the bottom of it, and he is going to tell us. He's going to let us know. But yeah, so recently, like a few weeks ago, there was loads of stuff coming out about all of the changes to VAR for the World Cup. All of the different things that VAR is going to be able to do. And it essentially was giving VAR much more of an overreach than it has ever had before. And so some of the changes proposed at the time, and this, as I said, this is only a matter of weeks ago, is that VAR will be able to review incorrectly awarded corners. VAR will be able to review second yellow cards that lead to a red. Sorry guys, I'm doing my best to conduct a very normal football show on a football channel. Poor Kai has just entered the madness, the Mad Hatter's tea party as it were, and is wondering about the context of the human elephant. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what context I can provide other than the fact that we're all a bit nuts, really. That seems to be the context. But so the other things were VAR can review incorrectly awarded corners, VAR can review second yellow cards leading to a red card, the introduction of countdown timers for throw-ins, and the introduction of countdown timers for substitutions. Now, obviously, the thought process at the time, certainly out there in kind of the wider football community, was these were essentially going to be trialled at the World Cup with the view that if they worked well, they would likely be then introduced into domestic leagues here in Europe next season. And I would suggest that the big five leagues were going to be involved in that. Flossie with the facts. There can never be a normal show on this channel. No, there really can't. We do our best, but I just don't think it's for us. Normal isn't for us, people. Sachin says, nah, the World Cup will be handled by whatever the international ref organisation is, and the rules there are very clear. They also already set a guideline for bear hugging in the corners. I don't know what you're saying, Nata. I don't think anybody said anything different than that. But yeah, so this was supposedly, and this came out the end of February, so which is really only a few weeks ago. But as I said, those were some of the things that were rumoured, that were, I think they were confirmed at one point as well, but sure, you never know in football, to be part of the rules at the World Cup. And as I said, the idea was that they were to be trialled at the World Cup, and all going well, they would then be introduced to the domestic leagues. Now, to be fair, I thought some of these were a really good idea, because what Roberto Rossetti told us was that VAR is for objective calls. In objective decisions, it's fantastic. So these are objective decisions. There will be like a VAR review for incorrectly awarded corners. So it's either a corner or it's not. You will be able to see who the last player it went off of was. Therefore, that is objective. So that fits in with what Roberto was telling us. Second yellow cards leading to a red. This is subjective. But the thing is, and I've always said this, if VAR can get involved for a straight red, I don't understand why they can't get involved for a second yellow leading to a red. Because the consequences are the same. A player gets sent off the pitch. It's quite a serious thing. And if there is a clear and obvious error in that decision, I've always thought that should be part of the rules anyway. So while it's not objective, it's subjective. It's related to a rule that's already there. If VAR can look at red cards, then it should be any red card, not just one for a straight red. At the end of the day, if a player's getting sent off the pitch, they're getting sent off the pitch. It doesn't matter if it's a second yellow, a straight red, whatever. It's the same thing. So I've always kind of thought that they should be able to review that. Countdown timers for throw-ins and countdown timers for subs. I mean, I understand the thought process in that, because some teams take a lifetime. And look, there's always been a little bit of, the dark arts, a little bit of time waste, and a little bit of trying to frustrate the opponent, give your team the edge. There's always been a little bit of that. So I think those two you would have to be really careful with, because obviously you don't want, like, out of the 90 minutes of game time, like 20 minutes of it not to be actually in play because you're drying the ball to be able to throw it every single time it's on the ground. I mean, the Premier League is played in England. England is a wet country. The ground is going to be wet. I mean, it does, the drying it, I don't mind the throw-ins. The throwing themselves don't really bother me. But the having to dry the ball every single time you're going to throw it, I do feel like takes a ridiculously unnecessary amount of time. Countdown timers for substitutions, I can sort of see that one, because look, people do take the mick, but I think it would have to be a reasonable amount of time, not something absolutely off the wall. Sachin, you're saying it's not influenced by the World Cup, it's more the European application is in a shambles. I completely disagree, Sachin. I wholeheartedly disagree. If they introduce these things in the World Cup and they go well, absolutely they would be introduced in the European competitions. To say otherwise, I think, is a little bit naive, being honest with you. I mean, if they see something that's been introduced in football and worked elsewhere for refereeing, of course they're going to bring it into the European competitions. And it already came out. This was already reported like weeks ago, that they were trialling it to be introduced to the domestic leagues if it went well. But the fact that this was announced 3 weeks ago at the end of February, and now all of a sudden Roberto has decided, right lads, I'm going to need to speak to you because this is going too far. I feel like he's trying to head them off at the pass. I think what he's saying is, I already think yous are using VAR way too much. Yous can't now start using it for more stuff. Yous can't use it for the bit you're supposed to use it for. What are you talking about? Yous are going to use it for other things. What are you talking about? You're going to introduce new things that VAR is allowed to check when you already can't do the things you're supposed to do. You're already using it too much. I'm not going to go and let us use it more. So I think the fact that the news came out that it was going to be kind of trialled with a view to bringing it into the domestic leagues, and then Roberto, like 3 weeks later, calls this meeting to be like, nah, lads, no, yous are already messing it up. Yous aren't getting more responsibility. We need to sort out what yous are already doing first. I think it's really, really interesting. And as I said, I actually find it really, really interesting that the Premier League are not the worst culprit. So we all thought yesterday, obviously, when we first heard the news, before we looked into it a little bit more, we all thought, oh, do you know what I mean? They're going to tell the Premier League to sort themselves out, which obviously they are, or they wouldn't have been invited to the summit. It's the fact that we're not the worst. I actually don't even think the Premier League's going to get that much of a bollocking, to be totally honest with you. I think, like, if you look there, the Premier League is 0.275. Serie A is 0.44 and Ligue 1 is 0.4. No, hold on. That's La Liga. Serie A is 0.47 and Ligue 1 is 0.45. I mean, they're almost, not quite, but they're almost double the interventions of us. So for me, I think actually we might end up being the example in the meeting of, look, they're only using it this many times. How are you using it so much? So what I hope they also do is not only look at the rate of interventions, I want them to look at the length of interventions. Because if they have 5 interventions, but each intervention only takes like 30 seconds, and we have 2 interventions, but each intervention takes like 4 to 6 minutes, obviously what we are doing is worse. So while the rate might not look as bad, it's actually much, much worse because it's eating much more of the game time. But I have to say, I really do welcome the news because I just think it is getting out of control. We've all, every single one of us has spoken about this through the season. Every single one of us has said it's taken too long, there's too many, they're micromanaging, it's not clear and obvious, and they're actually making it worse instead of better. Every single one of us has said that this season. So I think I very much welcome the news, and I'm really confused why more people aren't talking about it, because this is big, massive news in the world of football. Not only for the Premier League, but obviously if they're taking in the referees from the top 5 leagues, those are also the referees that deal with European competitions in terms of Conference, Europa and Champions League, which means that is going to carry across not just into the domestic leagues, it's going to carry across all of the competitions that our teams are playing in. So I feel like it's going to be very interesting to see next season if we start to see drastic differences in the way VAR is being used and the way the game is being refereed. We are going to know Roberto got his message across loud and clear. So I think it's going to be very interesting. And I'll be watching to see, because surely more information is going to start coming out about this. Surely more and more people are going to have to start talking about this. As I said, I think the reason it's probably not been quite so commented on is because it did coincide with the World Cup squads being announced, and therefore potentially flew under the radar a little bit. I mean, to be fair, only from Mama Flossie, I literally wouldn't have known about it at all. Like, I wouldn't have had a clue, because it's not anywhere I've looked. I had to search for that information. But as I told you guys before, I am not uber into the international competitions. Ireland doesn't normally do particularly well. However, we do have qualifiers next week, I believe it is. So I'll be watching those just to see, because if we get through, I will have more of an interest in the competition. But obviously, I understand a lot of you guys have a massive interest in the competition. Also, a lot of our players from our clubs are affected by the England team selection. So I'm going to pull it up on the screen. I'm sure most of you guys have already seen it, but let's have a little look at it together. Now, there we are. Sachin is saying it's a choice. The Premier League has already said they will not implement the corner second yellow. The thing is, the Premier League will have to do what they're told. So Roberto Rossetti is the head of all of the referees in Europe. So the Premier League can decide what they want. But then if Roberto comes behind them and says, actually lads, this is what you're doing, they have to do what they're told. He's their boss. So it's not actually a choice for them if Roberto steps in. Or if he doesn't step in, I believe they have the autonomy to decide. But if he is stepping in, it's not up to them anymore. He's taking it out of their hands. And that's what they're talking about. There's going to be uniformity across all of the leagues, rather than it being drastically different. So whatever comes out of that summit, the idea is that all of the competitions are going to do it, and it's going to be decided at a European level, not at an individual national level. So it won't be a choice if he tells them. But this is the 35-man squad, isn't it? This is the squad that was listed by this man right here for England. So, the goalkeepers he has listed: Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, James Trafford, Aaron Ramsdale and Jason Steele. Obviously, really good goalkeepers. Very interesting with James Trafford, because I imagine some of his frustration with not getting first team playing time with Manchester City when Donnarumma come in is because obviously he wanted to be listed in the squad, and I'm sure he thought it might affect his ability to be listed if he wasn't getting the playing time that he initially thought he was going to. So I'm sure they'll all be delighted, but I'm sure he'll be very pleased, because I imagine he was a little bit worried about that. Then when we go to defenders, yeah, Sachin is saying Jason Steele there for the vibes. Huge is saying this would be good, because then we're going to get the same rules as everyone else. All this pushing and barging and corners should be gone next season. I agree with that. I think that's the most important thing to come out of it, will be the uniformity. So you won't have one refereeing style in a domestic league and then a completely different refereeing style when you go to European competition. The idea of this summit is that at the end of it, all of them are going to referee the same way. So I think that will help the players. Forget about us. that was going to help the players. Sachin is saying Trafford was never realistically getting dropped. He is more disappointed that he did not make it as a starter. I'm sure he is very disappointed he didn't make it as a starter. But while we can sit here and logically say he was never going to be dropped, because we can look at it unemotionally and be like, that's not logical. When you're the person in the situation and you're the person involved and it deeply impacts your life and your career, your very short career, because football is a short career, you don't think logically. It's just worry. Do you know what I mean? So it might be something that he was worried about, even though from the outside it was pretty obvious it wouldn't happen. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure, like, obviously I'm sure there's a large part of it that's he wants to play first team football and he feels he should. But when it's an emotional situation, those wee things niggle at you, so they do. But then we move to the defenders and we have Dan Burn, Mark Guehi, Lewis Hall, Ezri Konsa, Tino Livramento, Harry Maguire, R. Harry, Nico O'Reilly, Jarrell Kwanzaa, Jed Spence, John Stokes and Fikayo Tomori. Now you might be noticing a trend here. We do have a number of Newcastle players, a la Dan Burn, Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento. I tell you what, I know we've got all the different teams there, do you know? Obviously City, we've got Al Harry, more City, Spurs, do you know what I mean? So there is a bit of a mix, but I tell you what, Newcastle have taken over in the defence there. Then we go to the midfielders and we have Elliot Anderson, Jude Bellingham, James Garner, Jordan Henderson, Kobbie Mainoo, Declan Rice, Morgan Rogers and Adam Wharton. Now, this is just... that is so good. Look at the players that are in there. Like, that is so good. Honestly, England have got to do something because that midfield is absolutely sensational, those picks. Do you know what I mean? But then we go to the forwards. Jared Bowen, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Eberici Eze, Phil Foden, Anthony Gordon, Harry Kane, Noni Madueke, Cole Palmer, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka and Dominic Solanke. This I find a little bit interesting because they're all playing at big teams, but some of these guys at the minute are really off form. And look, form is temporary. When you get to the England camp and you get joined in and it's all the fun and games and the vibes and everything else, and the guys you've missed all season are playing in, you know, foreign leagues and all that kind of thing. But when I look at the midfielders, I think, wow, like, wow. When I look at the forwards, I kind of think, okay, you've got some fantastic players there, but also some of them are really out of form. So I'll be interested, very, very interested in that. And again, it's a real mix. There's a real mix there. So I think that'll be very interesting. But overall, I think it's very strong. Very, very strong in general. Luke is in the house. Lovely Luke. And Sachin says only Bowen and Kane deserve to be there. No, to be fair, I do think Anthony Gordon's been doing really well lately. Rashford has been up and down at Barcelona, but I mean, he's never going to be left out. Cole Palmer out of form. Eze seems to be starting to hit form. Foden is struggling this season. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was having a bit of a renaissance. He did then miss that penalty, but overall he's had a bit of a renaissance this season. He's been quite good. I think that the forwards are a mixed bag. I think when you look at the keepers, very good. You look at the defenders, very good. You look at the midfielders, you've got the wow factor. You get to the forwards and you're going, that is a mixed bag. That is a mixed bag. So I think this is where you're hoping some of your players play themselves into form. But that is it, folks. I have been told that I end the streams rather abruptly. That is not intentional. It's just I have the things kind of mentally listed that I want to talk about. And when we talk about the things, the stream is done. Sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're longer. You know, I don't really I'm not going to stay if there's no reason. I'm not going to just keep you here for the crack. I'm not just going to waffle. So it's not intentional that I end all the streams abruptly, although it does seem to have become a bit of a trademark, but it's not intentional. So, in light of that, I'm letting you know I'm about to end the stream, guys. I want to thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for getting involved, for getting in the chat, for smashing a like, for watching, for spending a part of your day with me. You're all very lovely. Now, I have to get off. I will be back this evening, 7 p.m. sharp, because there's football at 8 o'clock and I can't be missing that. So I will catch you all later, hopefully at 7 o'clock. If not, have a lovely day. I hope we all enjoy the football and I will chat to you all very, very soon.